for GameMaker. I am one of the developer relation managers at GameMaker, and I'm here to share with you how we use GameMaker as a tool for teaching game design. And if I could move the slide. Oh God, hold on 1 minute. There we are. Cool. So just a summary of today. So this presentation's mostly split into 3 parts. So the first part will be giving you a little intro into GameMaker, its origin story, also some kind of some data that we collected over the years to understand GameMaker's place within the education sector. Then I'll be giving you some examples of some of the resources that are available for the different ages groups that use GameMaker to learn game design. And then finally, some of the nitty-gritty like data privacy and licensing options as well. So you have a good understanding as to how they differ. And then there'll be some space for some Q&A at the end. So GameMaker, its origin story is quite interesting. It's been around for quite some time. Yeah, sorry. And it started in 1999 as a tool by a professor by the name of Mark Overmars at Utrecht University. And it started out as really as like a hobby for him to supplement where he was teaching game design at the Utrecht's game department. And it slowly evolved into business from there. So it first became a studio, and then it later became a publisher, and now it's essentially what it is today is a dedicated game engine. And it's got an interesting way in which it approaches the programming side of game development. The language that it's used is called GML, which is a very visual system for programming, and that language has really been designed to get to grips of the fundamentals of learning how to code before then going into complex things. So the whole thing has been very much designed to be a very quick and easy approach in programming. And then from there, the engine also includes some of the kind of fundamental editing options for the engine. So things like imaging editors, sprite editors, object editors, also room editors for different game scenes, and now even a sequencing animation tool that we added in to really help some of the animation transitions for different objects that you see within games. And again, all designed to be as quick and easy to get an idea onto a screen as quickly as possible. And that's very much the premise of GameMaker, and that's our approach. As part of the educator license, there's lots of free resources that we provided. And since GameMaker has been around since the 90s, there's a very large and active community that we would argue is quite a supportive bunch, mostly through forums and also within Discord as well. And since we've been around for a while, we do have a number of bigger studios that have used GameMaker to build games. We recently actually published a game on Netflix called Skies of Chaos, which is a GameMaker game. Within this presentation, there's a link that you get, which you can click on, and you can get an example of some of the biggest studios that have used our engine to build their games. Some notable hits in the past, I'm not sure if you know them, but Hotline Miami, Hyperlight Drifter, Undertale, they're probably the 3 flagship titles that have come out within the last 10 years. And last but not least, our games are easily ported for various platforms, conventionally web, mobile, console, browser, Steam. Consoles include the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox as well. Just excuse me, I just need to close the door. 1 second. That's my son. Cartoon. anyhow, so as part of our dedicated approach for using our tool for teaching, we compiled a lot of research through the years. This chart that you see is our teachers' feedback in how they feel game design lessons are effective to their students. And the three most common buckets are mostly kind of planning, programming as an important skill, which permutates to lots of different other industries, but also mostly the learning engagement as well. They feel, because games are something that resonate quite strongly amongst the younger crowd, using that medium and teaching them how to build that medium kind of fosters very stronger learning engagement relative to other subject fields, which is something that we're very proud of. Just to give you an idea of some of the age groups that educational institutions typically teach game design to, they mostly fall into three buckets, starting from 14 to 15 all the way to 17 to 18. And then it kind of drips off, I guess, since from there, students, there's a whole plethora of subjects that students go down. So today I'll be focusing some resources on these three age brackets. And here's some data which we collected from the teachers that have been using GameMaker for their students on their most typical approaches, and three really stood out. One were the step-by-step videos that we provide within our educational hub. The second is also following the step-by-step guides, but with the teacher leading the session. And the third bucket is a project with specific objectives for students to achieve, but also to understand and to interpret why those objectives were necessary and how important those objectives were in their game. So for instance, an example of that would be why it was important to have a power-up mechanic within a game, or different levels, or an energy meter, for instance, or a consumable component to the game as well. In terms of how we evaluate the effectiveness of teaching game designs, mostly it's through observation and the assessment of individual assignments. So mostly because you essentially evaluate what you see on screen. So it's very easy to get an understanding as to how students have understood and comprehended the learning material, since the output of what they made is usually a fair reflection of what they learned. So looking at how well polished a game is, how the complexities in which they've kind of integrated into the game, how they've made the game different, quirky, creative, all really strongly correlates to their understanding of the learning material that preceded that. Ooh. So yes, so here are some example snippets. I'll probably just surface all on the screen of just some example quotes that we've got from teachers through the years as how they feel the GameMaker has benefited their education process for game design. And mostly the core kind of pieces of feedback are mostly around things like problem solving, and also just kind of understanding how to break down kind of complex problems into little pieces, and then following them in a logical approach to then abstract it and for themselves, and and then go on and award themselves with solving the challenge. And I think that's a really important piece for a very important skill, life skill, not only for game design, but for also other areas and other fields of work. And the other really kind of interesting piece of feedback is for students who have seemed to disengage with other topics, but was suddenly engaged with this particular field of topic. And I think, again, I think that really kind of comes down to games in general and how really it resonates with the younger crowd. So being able to learn these kind of skills through that medium, I think is a very positive thing. And then we got some feedback from the students as well, so not just the teachers. And here are some snippets and quotes that came back to us. And I think the most important one is really just the feeling of accomplishment at the end of it, and probably the rapid progress that they make in such a short space of time. And I think that's kind of credit to the way that we've approached our learning material and resource, and how we really step by step guide these students into making a basic game, and then going on and making their own ideas off the back of that. So moving on to some of the teaching resources that we have available. This is one example of a training program that we have available, catered for the 12 to 14 age bracket. It's a Space Bubbles game. It's split into 8 one-hour sessions with mostly through PowerPoint presentations and video tutorials. And we also have a built-in assessment system with 3 home worksheets built into it, and a teacher's guide. So there's some resource there for teachers to understand how to teach it, and a structure in place so that that teaching can be tracked and sequenced in a specific way, and also evaluated at the end. And within each of the stages of this particular resource, there are specific small GameMaker projects for each stage of the way. So the whole game example's really been designed from scratch. So you start with a blank slate, and you slowly, bit by bit, piece this game together towards the end. And yeah, here's some example of some of the key concepts that we teach for this particular resource. Sequencing, very important. Also understanding a bit of physics, movement, and yeah, some of the very fundamental programming concepts that are necessary to program this little space shooter. This is Space Rocks, and Space Rocks really kind of builds on from the previous one. And here we kind of add a few more layers for the 12 to 14 age group. And we add things like collisions, keeping score, adding some sound effects, understanding how to polish a game to make it feel a bit more fluid, kind of a better approach to kind of player movement, and also a little bit more into the coding aspect of it. And we move on from not only GML visual, but then we move on to GML code. So the visual kind of side of coding then goes into actually typing out some of these pieces of code the first time, of the students' first time. They get an understanding as to what it means to kind of instruct the game to do certain things. And yeah, as an extension of what I said previously, here are some examples of what we add to this particular tutorials. We add some power-ups, also some enemy ships, some enemy AI, some very basic AI, also different camera angles, particularly in regards to kind of haptic feedback pieces, and also visual effects with like particles and screen shake to give like the very first fundamentals of how to convey game feel to the player. This is another tutorial that we have available. This is Breakthrough. And I'd say this is probably the same kind of level of complexity as Space Rocks, but just a different game. So students just get an opportunity to really build on what they've learned before, and then build it through a different game style. So it has probably, I think for this one, the scoring system is a bit different. And also it's just the first opportunity for students to understand on how they can use what they've learned to build something just that little bit different. This is also another one that we've recently launched at GameMaker called Fire Jump. And this is probably our most advanced for the 12 to 14 age group. It's a 3.5-hour video tutorial split into 4 parts with lots of supporting written tutorials. And this is like a platform jumper. So this would be kind of like a mobile first kind of experience of building somewhat of a mobile game, or like an infinite jumper. And there's lots of really nice art assets that we've provided and prepared for this tutorial as well. Then for the 15 to 16 age bracket, so this is when we advise teachers to then ask these kind of students to move on and build something for themselves. And what I've done here is included a slide of tools that we recommend for teachers to look at to start students to start building their own projects. And there's lots of free tools and asset materials out there which students can take advantage of, which puts them in a place where they can take that step from following tutorial, but then losing some of the basics that they've learned along that journey to something completely their own and something completely unique. And these are just some of the tools that some of developers that we know take advantage of to help them to build the things that they want to build on screen. And we also have lots of GameMaker developers who build custom tools and making them available into the public. One of them is Textbox, and there's lots of those on GitHub where developers are taking the time to build extensions or build a piece which you can integrate into the engine to save some time on doing a particular thing. And an extension of this is our blog. Our blog is a really good hub of resource filled with lots of different tutorials and which we're constantly updating on a regular basis, but also some niche tutorials as well. So looking at certain TD video game art styles, or some different approaches to game design, or how to polish up your code, or what is good code versus bad code, what's efficient coding, things of that nature. So we always ask students to keep up to date on our blog, because we quite regularly share a lot of game development knowledge within that platform. In addition to that, we also have loads more video guides as well as an extension to the written form, where we go step by step into more tutorials or another specific area of game development where we kind of hone into. So for instance, there's one there at the bottom, like a filter effect or a filter layer, and conveying to students what is a better way of doing that. And we have lots of different tutorials covering those various topics. We also work with a lot of YouTubers in the space that on a regular basis teach people how to use GameMaker. One of the most famous is John Spalding, who's on this link below. He's a very knowledgeable person in GameMaker and a super nice guy as well. And he's got a lot of great tutorials right from very beginner all the way to advanced. And also some tutorials that really kind of deep dive into some of our IDE tools and all the different components within the IDE that we've set out for editing various pieces of the game. And we work quite closely with Sean Spalding in preparing these videos and this content. And this is another great field of resource which a lot of colleges take advantage. And I know Sean visits. Sean is based in the UK, and he visits quite a few colleges in the UK to give even more hands-on learning for students. And yeah, this is just some more material on Sean's boarding. So this is a really good tutorial, which I recommend everyone bookmark. He essentially builds a complete 2D side-scrolling platform game in just under 27 videos, right from the beginning all the way to building something that's got a consumable coin mechanism, getting the player to jump, collisions, interactive enemies, bit of AI, different level design, the whole lot. Then moving on to 17 plus, and this is where it gets a bit more advanced, and we have a section within our education program of a game that was built in conjunction with the faculty of design in Ontario called Little Town. It's kind of like a top-down RPG kind of game. And for this tutorial, we really do a lot of deep diving into our sequencing tool, which is quite an advanced piece to the engine. Yeah, we really, it's really designed for people who understand GameMaker on a basic level before they go into more kind of complex fields. Particularly in building an RPG, there's a lot more that you need to be thinking about as opposed to building something like Space Rocks. And yeah, we cover it in detail in there, and it's all available within our blog. And also, once people hit this age, they start to ask questions for themselves, take advantage of the community that we have at GameMaker. We have a very, very noisy and very active, proactive forum within our website. And as I said, I'd say the GameMaker community is very forthcoming and very supportive. So we do always ask students if they get stuck or want to ask something that may not have been covered in the tutorial, to reach out to the forums or even search the forums for themselves, because chances are that the question's already been asked. But yeah, it's a great place of Discord where really people can go out and ask questions and really look for specific answers that they're looking for. So moving on to our licensing options. So we have 3 options: Educator, Educator Plus, and Achiever, both available in 1 to 2 year timeframes. And really the main difference between the 3 is essentially where you port to. So if you just go for the basic plan, it essentially allows you to port your games to Windows, Mac, or Linux. Then on the middle bucket, you'll be able to port your game to HTML5, which is getting your game onto the browser. And then on the high end, you can essentially port it anywhere. So not only the browser and the desktop, but you also got the mobile platform, Android, iOS, and you also have the console side as well. And really, I should have updated PS4 to PS5 there, because it's also compatible with PS5 and the latest Xbox One series as well. And then this is quite important. So just a heads up, we take privacy very seriously at GameMaker. So if you do take up an education license, we don't collect any data from students. Student identity is completely anonymous and protected. Obviously, we know you as the account holder, but then as you cascade the seats down to your individual users within your faculty, we don't collect any of that information, and it's completely private. And then, since we're going towards the end of the presentation, there is a special offer for attendees. I believe Christina will be sharing this deck to you shortly after this call, but we will be entitled to a trial-free GameMaker license, which is available if you click that button. And that's me wrapped. Maybe we should open the floor to some questions.
Let me see here. There was one question. Can we use the seats for after school activities if they are available?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. As long as that after school activity is associated with the school, that's not a problem.
perfect. And it doesn't look like there's any more questions. I'll just give it a second. I don't see any coming through. I know Amy had a question earlier about the slide deck, and yes, I am going to be sending a link to that in the
Okay.
follow-up email, so that will be included with that. So I don't think there's any other questions.
Cool. Well, yeah, as I said, just keep an eye out for your email, Crystal's email. And yeah, thank you very much for your time, everybody. It's been my
Yes,
pleasure.
thank you, Marco. Thank you, everybody. And again, just keep an eye out for my email, and I will get you the slides and the recording in just a few days. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.